Good morning and good evening, listeners. You may have heard us in the past say good morning and also good evening. And I'm going to explain that today because I got a note on LinkedIn about it. We are recording in the morning, and this show is broadcast in the evening. It just makes it easier for our lives because Natasha and I are incredible travelers and we're always in different places. Today's show will be about maintaining traditions when you are in different countries.
And a happy new year to everyone because we are finally in 2025. We can say goodbye to 2024. And like I've seen on so many memes on Facebook, no one takes 2025 as their year. We walk in slowly, we don't touch anything, we stay respectful, and we hope for the best. So
That's all we can do any year. I never wish anyone Happy New Year because the truth is, you never have an entire year of happiness. You have
that's
happy
true.
moments. And if we sort of think about the human experience, it's the sad moments that make the happy ones even more precious.
That's very true. If we were happy all the time, it would be terribly boring.
Yeah, it would be kind of boring. It's like, oh, that would be, I guess, if you use ecstasy or some other drug.
Indeed, indeed. Now, last time we spoke, I was in a pub in Birminghamshire, and now I am in the center of London. I'm actually in the city of London. About 200 meters to my right is St. Paul's Cathedral, but between the two, I went back to Twickenham and I spent a non existent hogmanay in Edinburgh and came back from Edinburgh last night. So that
Lovely.
that is how much I've traveled in the last week.
Now, did the weather ever get so bad in Edinburgh to justify the cancellation of the festivities, or was that all BS?
Now, to be perfectly honest with you, um, on the day we arrived, which was the 30th in the morning, it was very, very blustery. I mean, had this been the time the fireworks were meant to go off, there's no way they could have gone off. I mean, my brother's cap flew off his head and we had to chase after it down the street, you know. But that was the only time. But the problem is they have to set it up. And as the weather people kept saying that it was going to be hell on earth, they couldn't set it up. And so they had to cancel it. But no, New Year's Eve was lovely. It was a little bit humid, but nothing more than a light drizzle, and not even the whole time. It wasn't blustery, it wasn't windy, it wasn't anything. But of course, since the fireworks had not been set up, they didn't go off. And in the end, we had a lovely and quiet New Year's Eve in a Radisson Blue lounge.
There's nothing wrong with that. It was
Absolutely.
also quiet where I am here in Sevilla because they didn't do fireworks near me and they banned street fireworks, unlike Berlin where they go off 24/7, the day before and the day after. Um, so I had a quiet New Year's and I realized the last time I actually celebrated New Year's, I was a little boy because I worked in hospitality most of my life. So I was cooking for others, serving for others, doing everything for others. We might have a sip of champagne in the kitchen, but we never celebrated. And I wrote my mother an email. The last New Year's Eve I remember celebrating was in Omaha, Nebraska, where she let us have popcorn, shrimp cocktail. I tasted my first Coca-Cola, didn't like it. And we watched the ball drop, which happened at midnight, we thought, being kids, which, of course, it was on the East Coast, and we went to bed at 10 p.m. So she
Fair
tricked us
enough.
into believing that it was the next year. But that was lovely. And I don't think I've celebrated since then.
No, I mean, at the table next to us at the Radisson was a whole Italian family. And basically, the whole bar counted down for the last 10 seconds. And then the Italians opened up a bottle of popped open a bottle of champagne, and for themselves, because we first of all didn't expect to be part of their celebrations, and we already had cocktails, and the whole bar said Happy New Year to each other, and that was it. I think I was in bed before 12:30.
Excellent. Christmas Eve, I celebrated with Italians, and it came about because I was doing a tour here in Seville, the wine tour that I do. And the waiter that I'm very friendly with, he adores me, asked me what we were doing on Christmas Eve. And I said, nothing. I'm going to have a quiet evening home with this little guy. And he said, no, it's no possible. You will come to the house of my mother. And his father is Spanish and his mother's Italian. So she did the Feast of the Seven Fishes.
Ah.
And it was an hour outside of Sevilla, and it went on and on and on and on. I got to bed on Christmas Eve at about 3 a.m. because it was a good hour bus ride back into the city where I was. But it was one of the most delicious meals I've ever had in my life. And I've been eating for, over 40 years. So it was just incredible food.
Well, I have to say, we ate particularly well in Scotland as well. But so we went, and I finally had haggis.
Did you like it?
Loved it. It was absolutely delicious. But to be fair, we had haggis, and let me give you the name of the restaurant so that we had at the Cafe Royale in Edinburgh, and I have to say that it was an amazing place with stained glass window and a beautiful decorated interior. And it used to be something else, and then was almost destroyed, and then it was redone, and so on and so forth. But we really had a lovely time, and we had a very early dinner at 6:45, and we ate. We took our time. We ate some kind of fish soup to start off with, and then we had haggis. But they told us the table wasn't booked for after, so we stayed and had a few drinks after, and the staff was amazing, the food was amazing. It really was Cafe Royale. I recommend. And then we went to Badger and Co. Also in the new town, and that was amazing food. Yes, we really had marvelous time. The only, not an incident, but at all, but when we went to the Sanderson Hotel, for afternoon tea, 2 of my sandwiches still had the crust on, and that were the only 2 sandwiches that had the crust on, and I just thought how funny it was that I ended up with both of the crusts.
I don't mind a crust.
Move notification to notification center. No, it's still telling me that when I'm not going to snooze. Snooze worked this time. Wonderful.
All right. I don't know what all that means, but that's okay. I learned something interesting about dogs and their habits. I moved on January 1st. I'm in a room in a Spanish household now because I'm taking immersion classes, right? So, are you there?
Yep.
Okay. So I just wanted to make sure you didn't snooze. We got here, and the first day, Milu was not drinking water unless I gave it to him in my hand. And I thought, this is so strange. He always eats food and drinks lots of water. And then I realized that his water bowl was on the right, and in the previous apartment, his water bowl had been on the left. So I switched them, and he immediately began gulping down water.
Okay. Wow.
So he's very much a dog of routine. This is the time I sit on your lap and we do our work. This is the time I go for my walk. This is the time we go to the gym. And he likes that routine a lot. So he's kept with it at the new place. It's a different park. He has no objection to that. A different room. He's fine with that. Things just have to be the way they are. So I think he's a little, what do they call it? ADD?
OCD.
OCD, obsessive compulsive. The water has to be in the right place.
Okay. Gosh, I'm so glad Cozy is not like that. Adam seems to think that he needs his particular food bowl and his particular cup. But to be honest with you, he drinks from the toilet, so I don't think he's that particular about his cup.
Yeah, this guy has never drunk from a toilet.
And as for the food, I mean, he's very happy if the food's on the floor. So he's really not OCD at all.
Now,
The only,
food off the floor.
yeah, the only thing Cozy requires, demands, is that he's with us.
Yeah, and that's his big demand as well. He's got to be with me all the time, and he is, and that works for both of us, you know. So I was just thinking about Christmas Day. I don't do Christmas Day. I used to do. I started doing Christmas Eve once I left the U.S. because in Europe that tends to be the thing, and I like it better. Christmas Day was not happy in my household when I was a kid because my mother was married to kind of a beast, and the day would always end up in tears and fights. My brother, older brother, would always give me a gift that he wanted, knowing I would abandon it. It was that kind of household. So Christmas Day was ugly and unpleasant. But celebrating Christmas Eve, I really like because that's my holiday. Christmas Day, oh, I made a ragu alla bolognese, and we had pasta and stayed at home and watched a movie.
Well, as you know, my formative years of childhood, all the way up to the age of 15, except for the 2 years in Canada, I lived in France. And in France, it's always Christmas Eve. So Christmas Eve, we had all my family come over. That is my parents, both sets of grandparents, all my aunts and uncles and cousins. We ended up probably around 30 people in the house. Major dinner, major event, opening presents and everything. I mean, it was, and every single Christmas Eve, there was a call that was placed to include my aunt who lived in the US so that we could say happy birthday to her. Her sister and her brother, my father, were with us, but she was in the US. So it was one of those, you had to order a call before and it had to be placed and everything. And Christmas.
Remember those days, yeah.
Yeah, and Christmas Day, basically, as children, we woke up, ran downstairs, and the only thing that was downstairs, and the most important thing that was downstairs, was the rest of the desserts were on the table. So we had breakfast of Christmas cakes, Christmas cookies, and everything, so on and so forth. The presents had already been opened, and eventually, sometime during the day, we would either go to my grandparents or my aunt and have a meal, but that was it. And Christmas Day has never been anything for me at all.
The best Christmas Eve I had was in Paris at Chef PJ's home. It was foie gras and oysters and escargot and a whole cured salmon. It was
That's exactly it. Yes.
The best food, the best wine, the best company. That was back when I had a beard. I know you like the beard, but I shaved it off because this is a funny climate. It was it was about 2 degrees when we got up this morning. Now it's up to 7, and it should be up to about 14 later. The nights are incredibly cold right now.
Oh, well, I'm in London. It was -2 last night. So,
oh boy.
Yeah, you'd like that. But yes, Christmas Eve, Oh, Christmas Eve in France, like you say, at Christmas Eve, you would generally eat foie gras, oysters, smoked salmon, that kind of stuff. It's basically nibbles. And traditionally, what we did was we had all this, and then we opened the presents, and then we had desserts.
Yeah, that's what we did. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got this very strange nutcracker that works. It's a like it looks like a big condom, and you put the nut in the condom, and you hold the nut back like a slingshot and let it go, boop, and it cracks into this thing, and then the shell goes to one side and the nut into a chamber. You open the wooden thing, and the nut is in the chamber most of the time if it cracks correctly and you don't get a lot of shards. I think it's just the coolest thing.
Indeed, indeed. I went to Greece recently and brought back soap on a rope
Ah,
in the shape of uh, penises
okay. Well, that's
because
convenient.
they sell them everywhere. It's something to do with some Greek god or something. So,
Was Priapus Greek?
with a name like that, probably.
Yeah, Priapus is the god of the phallus.
Yeah. Well, they had gods
And
for
then he
everything back then.
became Saint Priapus in the Catholic Church, which the Catholics don't like to talk about, but they have a lot of strange saints, including Saint Kieran of Clamacles, who is the patron saint of cows. They have a saint for every occasion.
Hmm. Yes. And that is what happened when Henry VIII wanted to marry Anne Boleyn. He left the Catholic Church, and before, when England was in the Catholic Church, Christmas was celebrated on St. Nicholas Day, which is the
Right.
6th of December.
Oh, everything will be closed here the 6th. We do the 12 days of Christmas here.
And so he got rid of all the saints, and there were some serious objections. But as Catholics, they also celebrated the birth of Jesus Christ, which traditionally is set to be 25th of December, but has been proven not to be the 25th of December. But who cares? It's like the Queen. She has two birthdays. Oh, well, now it's the King. But anyway, so he settled the problem by having all the presents being given out for Jesus's birthday. So Henry VIII created Christmas Day.
Interesting. Do you know that the early America, any celebration of Christmas Day was banned because it was considered a pagan holiday. The pilgrims would not, if anyone was caught celebrating Christmas, they were given the death penalty.
I love that kind of tolerance and
Yeah.
understanding.
Yeah, I did a little, not a lot of research for a column I wrote many years ago in the Huffington Post, and it's still my favorite column because I talk about, fighting the war on Christmas, and which never really existed. No one was fighting a war on Christmas, but radio host Rush Limbaugh kept saying the war on Christmas, the war on Christmas. You can't even say Merry Christmas anymore. You have to say Happy Holidays. We go through this every year, and it's never been true, and it never will be true.
I have to say, although I tend to say happy holidays just out of habit, I can remember when my children were in school here in London that when the teacher was organizing things for Christmas, and that was confirmed both by the teacher and by my kids, some student had the right. And when I say students, they were 6, 7, that kind of age,
Mhm.
had to leave the room if Christmas was mentioned.
Interesting. Well, I know for Thanksgiving you did a turkey, correct?
Yes.
Okay. When I was growing up on Thanksgiving, we never did a turkey. My mother would make pot roast with cream of mushroom soup, mashed potatoes, and some sort of vegetable out of a can. She was not a chef, but she, always made sure we had food. And that was our Thanksgiving tradition. So for me, I never had any attachment to the turkey. And then when I looked at what Thanksgiving traditions came from, I realized they were all given to us by marketing in Madison Avenue. Everything from the turkey, which came from the Butterball Corporation, to the green bean casserole from the Campbell Soup Company, to the cranberries, ocean spray. All of those traditions were manufactured traditions. And many people don't realize that they were never Thanksgiving traditions. The tradition prior to all of those things being pushed on us by advertising was to celebrate the local harvest. That was it, whatever the local harvest was.
No, indeed. So I don't suppose they harvested turkeys.
Well, if you lived on the East Coast, you might have had a turkey because wild turkeys were commonly hunted. And if you got one, you might have it for Thanksgiving. If you lived in another part of the country, you would have something different. In the South, it was almost always ham until the turkey became ubiquitous after World War II. Ham was really common. My favorite Thanksgiving, I decided not to make any sort of main meat dish. I was always cooking whatever I fancied. And I decided to do the stuffing, but to stuff the stuffing into zucchini boats and mushroom caps. I made the potatoes, the gravy, all of these side carbohydrates that people go crazy for, and just didn't do the turkey entirely. And it wasn't until halfway through the meal that anyone noticed. It was gravy.
Actually, to be perfectly honest with you, I'm particularly fond of stuffed marrows, stuffed different vegetables stuffed. I think that's delicious. That's a wonderful way of eating vegetables.
Right. Marrow is also courgette and zucchini, correct?
Well, marrows are from the pumpkin family.
I thought they were zucchini.
I don't know. Oh, I'm so sorry. We had some dead airspace while I was trying to figure out what the heck was going on. Sorry about that. Yes, so marrows, I may be wrong. I don't know. We'll have to
Are
look
they
it up.
long and green?
Yes, they can be.
Yeah, that's the same thing as zucchini.
So for anybody that can hear me pouring my coffee, I'm pouring my coffee.
No one can
Okay.
hear you.
Good, good, good. Because there's water running and I didn't want anybody to be worried about that. So I'm just pouring my coffee. Because like I said, we're in a new hotel. It's the Native King's Wardrobe.
Very
And
nice.
yes, it actually is very nice and remarkably inexpensive for central London. And it's a studio, so it has a kitchenette.
Ah, it looks like you have some good light outside. Is the sun shining or it's just a bright day?
No, it's a beautiful day with not a cloud in the sky, which is, we had that yesterday from Edinburgh to London. It was a nice day all the way down in the train.
Good. I mean, there's something about the sun that can just, make you happy. It was
Yeah,
so cold this morning. Milo went out, did his business within a minute, and ran back to the front door.
I'm
He does
sure.
not like cold.
No, to be fair, I'm sure Cozy's absolutely delighted to have a litter box and not having to go outside.
Oh, that's right, because your cat is a leash guy most of the time.
Yes, yes, and we don't generally take it. Although we are thinking of going skiing next year, and of course we will be taking the cat, not skiing, but to the mountains.
Is there any chance you're headed to London at the end of May at any point?
I don't know why.
Well, I've got a little bundle on my lap that needs to get in, and car is the easiest way to do it. If you take the train, it can be a real hassle. If
You
you take
can't.
a
You can
five,
only bring them by car.
no, you can take them on the Eurostar. Remember, he's got service dog papers,
Ah, okay.
but they apparently turn away about 50% of service dogs because they have to be accredited by one of the agencies that is recognized in the UK.
Hmm. And why does the little boy have to go to the UK?
Because I'm going,
Fair enough. And why are
and
you going to the UK?
I'm going to the UK to meet with a chef that wants to get involved with the chef tours with a pie making class.
Oh, we have been discussing pies here at length between my husband and my brother, who are particularly fond of pies.
I am too.
Yes, and in Edinburgh, we went to, like I said, Badger and Co., the restaurant, and they had chicken and mushroom pie and ranted and raved about it.
My favorite is the chicken and leek.
I had ox cheeks, so
Mm,
I am not particularly that fond of pie. And as I'm not fond of chicken,
you wouldn't get that.
nah, no.
Actually, that makes me want to do chicken and leek tonight. I have some leeks. The vegetable market had a great deal on leeks. It's funny. The prices here vary enormously depending on what people are cooking at a particular time of year. So, for instance, beef is not a common Christmas dish, so beef plummeted in price, and seafood went sky high, as did goat and lamb, because they're very, very common here. So you have to look at what the holiday or tradition is to know what you're going to get a deal on.
Very interesting. Yes, I have. It has been pointed out to me that I don't look at the price of food when I go shopping. I just put in the basket whatever it is I want, and I feel kind of embarrassed at doing that.
You
That
shouldn't be.
well, I think one should have some indication of what prices are like.
Well, yeah, but most of the time we're in Berlin where most of the prices are pretty reasonable still, even with all the, price gouging by the corporations.
That's true. That's true. But I fancied salted butter. I bought salted butter, and Penelope, my next door neighbor, as you know, had a look at the price and went, "You spent how much on this butter?" And I said, "I don't know. I wanted salted butter."
See, there's a few things, like salted butter from France that I will get at
That was it.
Metro, and it's so exquisite. To have that on toast is 1,000 times better than any other butter. That in that case, I may look at the price, but I don't care about the price because I'm not eating pounds of it every day. I'm eating a little bit at a time. It lasts for a long time, and it is 1,000 times better than German butter. Market butter is nicht gut.
Well, that's exactly what happened. You see, it was butter from Bordeaux, which granted it wasn't Normandy, but it was butter from Bordeaux with fleur
Bordeaux
de
is still
sel.
good.
Yeah, with fleur de sel in it. And
Hmm.
if I see fleur de sel on some butter, I buy it.
I'm with you on that. The quality of butter matters enormously. And now with Danish, the Danish butters all having that Boviar additive by Bill Gates that they're giving to cows to destroy their and our health, I won't touch Danish butter any longer. I will only buy French butter where they refuse this crap.
Yeah, the French, they're not, yeah, no. I mean, when they started saying you needed to have all the cheeses with pasteurized milk, I think France like burst out laughing and said, yeah, right.
Yeah, they will only pasteurize the milk for their exports because the US won't take them otherwise.
Yes, and I'm very grateful that they don't pasteurize the milk for the routine camembert that you can still buy in stores.
Oh, I know. It's so good. Um, Here I found two sheep's milk cheeses that are unpasteurized, and divine, and Spain is not a big cheese country.
Yes, yes. But yeah, ewe cheese is really good. And I particularly like goat's cheese, but I like it when it's kind of creamy. No, not creamy fresh, the other way around. Creamy towards the end of its life when it starts to
Okay.
look like a camembert.
I like that. I like the creamy fresh. What I don't like is the in between.
The kind of chalky one.
Yeah. To me,
Yeah.
that's exactly what it is. It's chalky. Still tastes like goat cheese, but the texture is all wrong.
Yeah, I like my cheeses to be really strong.
Well, yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, I'm
Yeah.
French.
Have you had Limburger in Germany?
Yeah,
I love
I
it.
have. I have. And Munster and Epoisse is
Oh,
great.
I love it. Plus,
Epoisse is great. Yeah, all
now
these
there's
things.
a thing that goes around the internet periodically about it. Plus, saying that it's against the law to take it on French transit because of the smell.
I don't know.
I couldn't find this law anywhere. I think it's a rumor.
Yes, I
You
would
know
think so
how
as
the
well.
internet, someone will make a fake meme, 1,000 people will share it without fact checking it, and suddenly people believe this is what the truth is. And it's
Yes,
not the truth, and it never will be the truth.
yes, indeed, I agree with you. Yes, it's we have hourly examples of that on Facebook of
Oh,
things
yeah.
that are, the truth. And then when you go and look into it with scope or things like that,
No,
it's, yeah,
Snopes.
Snopes. Yeah, you're right, Snopes. It will say,
Yeah.
yeah,
That is, well, my favorites are they have credited the Dalai Lama, Abraham Lincoln, Benjamin Franklin, Mark Twain, all thousands of fake quotes. And for a long time, there was one going around about Steve Jobs, who, his deathbed confession, money won't bring you happiness, blah, 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 blah. Of course, Steve Jobs never said anything like that. It was written by someone. And then I think you posted one that was a story about Katharine Hepburn and movie tickets and how her father did one, gave them
circus tickets.
circus tickets. And that was not true in the least. Nothing like that ever happened. It was from a Chicken Soup for the Soul.
I read that and I shared that because it was a nice story. And I promote this kind of kindness. But I do seem to remember that Katharine Hepburn's parents were not particularly poor at all.
They were wealthy as can be. She came from
Exactly.
an ultra wealthy family. Oh, this guy's sliding off my lap. So money was never an issue for her growing up or after her career started because she was a success from the very beginning.
Exactly. So you see, I read that, I thought it was a lovely story, but having read either her autobiography or her biography, I was a bit startled because I'm pretty sure her parents would have had plenty enough money to go to the circus.
10 times over if they'd wanted to, yeah.
Probably could have bought the circus.
Maybe two or three of them. Yeah.
Exactly.
I never liked the circus terribly much because I was worried about the animals. And the only thing I really liked were the acrobats, the high wire and that type of thing. The rest of the circus, the clowns, I was worried about the animals, how they were being treated. The clowns just were annoying. They thought they were funny and they never were. I wasn't scared of them. They just get out of my face with that, you know.
Well,
So circuses were not my thing.
well, I cannot begin to tell you how much I loved the circus as a child. Why? Oh, that's a good question. Well, around Christmas time, there was a circus in Paris called the Cirque Bouglione. It was a big circus, and it was a nice circus. But the circus itself was not the attraction. Because of my father's work, okay, we got tickets to the circus. But in addition to the tickets to the circus, when we got to the circus, because of my father's work, each of the children had a 1 kilo bag of sweets.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it was, it was big, big bag, like this big, it was huge bag of all sorts of different sweet, not just, you know, um, one type at all, but loads and loads of different types of sweets. And we would have sweets for a month, you know. Yeah.
Wow.
And that
That's just
was,
Thanksgiving for me. Or not Thanksgiving, Halloween.
yeah, but we didn't celebrate Halloween in France.
No, but it's interesting, and that's, back to our original topic. Halloween has become more popular in Europe, primarily because of expats like us bringing those traditions and people going, oh, that's a good idea. In Germany, I had my first trick-or-treaters maybe 2 years ago.
Well, when we came back from Canada in 1970, and in Canada, we had celebrated Halloween because they did. When we came back, there was no Halloween in France at all. But there was a housing estate in our town that were for American service people. And so I used to go down there. My sisters and I would go down there and celebrate trick-or-treating and Halloweening with going from house to house.
Mhm.
Pardon. And like we did in Canada. And so for a few years, it really made up for it. And then we moved to California when I was 15. And I have to confess that I did go trick-or-treating age 15 and 16 in California. I stopped after that. I was a bit old. But
it never bothers me to see the older kids doing it.
But then when I had kids and we were in London, oh my, the Halloween parties I had at home, were incredible, and I never did. We lived in a house, in the middle of places where there were tons of other houses. So I had pumpkins galore, all carved out with lights in them outside. The sweets I gave out were full-sized candy bars and stuff like that. And those were amazing Halloweens that we used to have at the house.
Do you know my brothers hated when they got an apple in their Halloween bag?
Yeah, of
They
course.
thought an apple was the worst thing ever. I loved apples, and much of the candy I got, I would never eat. I wasn't going to eat circus peanuts or any of that kind of crap. So I would trade crappy candy for fresh, crisp apples. And I fell in love with some of the apples that were grown. This was in a place called Minnesota. I don't recommend it, but I fell in love with some of the apples that they have there, including the wealthy apple and the Stamen winesap. And people often had trees, picked the apples, and gave them to you on Halloween. I thought it was just great. So I would give them crap candy and get apples.
I can only imagine that you would have been an incredibly popular child.
Well, not for 3 seconds, yeah.
Yeah, but
I got a packet of Oreos. I traded that for an apple.
indeed. I would have traded all my apples for your sweets. Believe me, I would have bought extra apples just to get all your sweets.
I can eat fruit with absolute impunity. I love it. Apples with peanut butter is still a favorite of mine. And that's going to be my task today. Run out to try to find peanut butter. I found it at a Cardiff 4 when I first moved here, and it was very good. I went through that jar, and now I'm going to be looking for peanut butter in You know, Lidl doesn't have it. Aldi doesn't have it. There is a big supermarket called or department store called Inglese that may have it in their basement because they bring a lot of things in from other parts of the world.
Yes. Now, while we're on the subject of food, I don't know if they do that they probably do that in Spain. Spain is definitely a Catholic country. But in 3 days, it's the King's Feast.
Right.
And in 3 days, there will be special cakes. In France, they are galettes des rois, which
Right.
and they're marzipan and flaky dough cakes, and in them you have a something. And
Oh, right. A
yes, and
little, yeah.
yeah, and traditionally you put the youngest member under the table. It'll become explainable in a second, and you
Mhm.
cut, and then you cut the pie. Why the youngest member? Just because we're cruel and whatever. But why does it have to go, he or she have to go under the table before we cut the pie? Because it's possible that when the pie is cut, we see where the bit is, the little thingy, la fève, which traditionally actually was a bean, a white bean, but now is usually a ceramic something. And so they go under the table, and person who cuts the cake points to a piece and says, "Who's this for?" And they go around and until everybody has a piece. So it has to be cut into the number of pieces that there are people.
Right. We do that in New Orleans with the king cake for Mardi Gras. Every week there's a Mardi Gras party. And if you get the baby, then you have to host the party the next week. And it's just a little plastic baby. But it's funny when you're a little kid, getting a little plastic baby is the best thing on earth. And then you
Oh,
look at it now and go, what a tacky thing to get, you know?
well, absolutely. I mean, getting the bean, la fève, I mean, that made you king or queen for the day. And you
Yeah.
got to pick your king or queen, the other partner. Actually, funnily enough, it hadn't happened at the time that you could pick like your sister for the queen. If you, like me, I couldn't pick my sister for the queen. I had to pick somebody of the opposite sex. I guess today we would be more open to choosing somebody from the same sex if we wanted.
See, we didn't do that in New Orleans. That part of the tradition ended. No one picked you were king. King could be male, king could be female. No one picked a co-host, as it were.
Yeah, we get little gold crowns. Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that I'm curious about. And you've lived in the UK. I've seen a lot of pictures from the UK of Christmas dinner where people are wearing crowns made out of, anything, foil, cardboard, whatever. What is that tradition?
Um, I don't know. It comes in the crackers. It
What
comes in
crackers?
Christmas crackers.
What are Christmas crackers?
So Christmas crackers, I will look up what the tradition of Christmas crackers are, and I'll tell you all about it on the next show. Christmas crackers are like rolls of cardboard rolls and wrapped up. And in the cardboard rolls, there are usually three things. There is a prize. So the prize can go, if you get them at Harrods for £10,000 each, you can have a Mont Blanc pen or a Rolex watch.
Well, well, well.
If you go to Tesco's, you can have a little plastic animal. So they vary greatly on how much you want to spend on the price.
Buy me one from Harrods while you're there. I love a rollback,
And But usually what you get is you get a little screwdriver set or one of those little metallic puzzles or a small deck of cards. And you get that. Now I'm looking up because the most wonderful man in my life has just brought me breakfast.
Adam.
Yes, Adam himself. So, and in there you also get a joke and a fact. Okay. And in there you also get a hat, a crown, a paper crown. And what happens is you pull either end and it snaps and bangs. So you hold them like this.
Right.
Everybody holds them like this and pulls at the same time. Oh, I have a meat pie and some cranberries in white chocolate. Berries
Oh my.
in delicious disguise. Yes.
So your going off sugar has ended?
Well, actually, I haven't been, and a meat pie. So I haven't been very good with that over the holidays because I didn't want to bother with that. But when I get back to Berlin, it will become even more dramatic than it was before.
Now, when are you back?
On the 13th.
Okay, so you've got about another 10 days of holiday.
Exactly.
Okay.
And when I come back, I'm even going to cut out the honey. I'm just going to have toast and butter for breakfast.
Try peanut butter.
Yeah, no. I finally tried haggis and loved it. I've tried peanut butter many, many, many times before, and the result is always the same. No.
Well, it's funny. The reason that Carrefour has been sold out of peanut butter is that the Thai people don't necessarily celebrate Christmas the same way other people do. They kind of give it a nod and do some things. But one of the festival dishes is noodles in peanut sauce, and there's a big Thai community here. And so Carrefour was the only place that had peanut butter, and that's why it's sold out.
Fair enough. Absolutely fair enough. If you need peanut butter for the sauce, you could do it at home, but that's not really nice.
No, I
So,
made good peanut butter there was some periods in Berlin when I couldn't find it, and I've made good peanut butter, but it takes a lot of work.
mhm,
The processor works overtime.
it does. It would indeed, unless you like it crunchy.
I like it crunchy, but what I do is I make the crunchy bits first, then I do the smooth bit, and then I have to mix them together. You often have to add a little peanut oil for the smooth bit because we don't get Valencia peanuts, which are the oily ones. So it's good, but I have to say the good commercial brands do it better than I do. I don't like the peanut butter from Africa. It's just thick and almost tasteless. I don't know what's wrong with it. The Asian stores always have African peanut butter, and I've tried it a few times. It just doesn't work for me. It's stiff.
Okay.
They're mostly putting it in soup, so
Actually, I can tell you, having tasted peanut butter on several occasions, that the one thing I don't like about peanut butter is I find that it's not salty, and
peanut butter salty.
not that salty, and so I find it tasteless.
I add salt to mine, no matter who I buy it from.
Maybe I should try that.
Yeah, I've always my favorite in the U.S. was Trader Joe's Crunchy Valencia, organic, and even then I would add salt to that.
So maybe I should try adding salt, and then I might like peanut butter. But
I like to put butter on toast first, then peanut butter second.
although, of course, an American staple is peanut butter and jelly sandwich, in which case you don't want it to be salty.
I hate jelly, so
Fair enough. Yes, you don't eat anything that's sweet.
No, I don't. I'm not a
Yeah.
sweet fan. I did learn something about our sour oranges, which was fascinating to me. In Spain, most of the sour oranges go to the UK for use in marmalade.
Yes, that they do. Seville oranges are famous for being used in marmalades.
And they're grown in the public squares. They're grown all over town. You pass a tree, it's likely going to be an orange tree, and the city owns them. And they tolerate if you take a couple for use at home, but it's not legal, but it's allowed. They will harvest them fairly soon, but what they always do, and this is interesting to me, is they don't fully harvest a tree, even when they're fully ripe. They always leave some oranges on the tree for people taking photographs.
Ah, clever.
Because that's a characteristic, the Sevillan orange, the Valencia
Indeed.
orange. It's interesting how certain things are done for tourists. And I learned something here about the bread here. The bread here has improved in the past few years enormously. Bread here was always sort of tasteless and white, or the traditional bread of Seville were those olive oil crackers that are crisp and gorgeous. And that was because of the high humidity level. They would stay fresh for longer because they were twice baked and really dry. But they brought in German bread makers to teach them how to make sourdough.
Oh, sounds good. I love sourdough.
I love sourdough. It's always sharpest in San Francisco, but I go to a place called New World Bakery that has incredible sourdough.
In Berlin?
No, in Berlin, I can get it just up the street. There's a lot of bakeries that use sourdough. There's one, and
Oh,
they
well,
learned it from a German baker.
and I'm sure and you found it, and I'm sure it's a great place.
Well, me and shopping, I find, it's kind of my thing. Wherever I go, I find the best of what there is.
Yes. Yeah, fair enough. Absolutely fair enough. For people wondering why I'm moving around like this, I'm making myself my coffee.
So your camera is mostly frozen, so you're not moving around terribly much.
Oh, sorry about that. I don't see myself as being frozen. So, yes, I guess I see the actual photo and not what it's reproduced as.
What I'm getting is what's transmitted through the internet and being
Mm.
recorded. So your camera is freezing a lot, but your sound quality is great.
Oh, thank you so very much. No, I'm sorry I'm freezing a lot. I don't know what I can do.
Probably the Wi-Fi signal, and that's something that we have no control over.
Definitely no control over it. Yeah, sorry about that.
Nah, don't worry about it. Only the YouTube viewers will even notice, if they notice at all. Ahmed listens to YouTube. He doesn't watch it. He sent me a note on LinkedIn. So he was the listener from Egypt that has been following us back
Yes,
from when we were on SNBRS. And I apologize for my camera freezing up. And he said, no, I don't care. I watch on YouTube, but I only watch to listen.
fair
Meaning
enough. Yeah.
he treats it like a podcast.
Well, that's good enough. Absolutely. You don't necessarily need the image. The
Yeah.
sound is just fine. I've noticed though that we still are not listed on expat radio.
I'm sure we will be soon.
Well, I'm not worried.
No, I mean,
I
we
like
know
it.
we have the listeners, I'm not worried about whether or not they put us on the schedule correctly. During the holidays, everything slows down.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. A little bit too much, to be perfectly honest, because I find that, the usual quote is, oh, I'll wait till the holidays have ended to do blah, blah, blah.
And here that will be the 7th of January. So
Yes, because the 6th is a Monday.
6 is a Monday, everything will be closed. Even Carrefour Express, which is sort of the 7-Eleven of Sevilla, will be closed on the 6th. They weren't closed on Christmas Day. They weren't closed on Christmas Eve. That is the one day a year they close. It is considered the holiest day here.
And for those of you who do not know why it is a holy day, it is the day that the three kings made it to baby Jesus with myrrh, gold, and frankenstein. Oh, frankincense.
Frankincense. Yes, Frankenstein was a little bit later.
Yes, but yeah, so that's why it was closed down. I mean,
Yeah, I don't
that's
know
why it's
why it has
important.
become such a holy day in the Catholic Church, but it is.
I strongly
Namely,
suggest we don't argue, whatever.
what?
I strongly suggest we don't argue, we just accept it
Yeah,
as
no,
another one.
I'm not going to argue with it. I'm just curious how it became about.
Yeah,
I'm not
well,
a
it's
good
another
Catholic
one. Of,
studier, so let them have their holidays. I'm totally an atheist. I believe that man made God, not the other way around.
obviously.
What was Mark Twain's quote? And man loved God so much, we created him in our own image.
Well, my question is more in the sense that why is our God the God when there are so many different religions in the world that have their God? And why is their God useless and our God is the right one?
Well, that's what I've gotten into this with believers on Facebook periodically. They'll say, something about God, and I say, which God? Well, the one God. Which one is the one? Which one did you pick to be your one? And then they'll usually say Jesus or something like that. And I'll say, then why were you given the commandment, thou shalt have no other gods before me, if he was the only God? You need to read the Bible. You need to go study. They won't ever answer the question, because when you challenge their brainwashing, they get really, really upset.
On the other hand, you're absolutely right. And I believe the same thing you do. But on the other hand, uh, Petula, my sister-in-law, pointed out to me that some people that I don't believe in God, but I believe in faith in the sense that some people find solace in faith. And
Yeah, I would agree with that.
yeah, and if they need to find solace, if they live better um, with the thought that there is a religion, and they feel that God is looking after them and that makes them feel comforted, then that is important.
Yeah, my mother is a believer, and I'm fine that she attends church on her computer now, because she's getting a little up there, and it's hard to get a ride and to get there on time and to get in and out of cars. So she watches church on her computer, but her vision's going, so she really just listens and sings along, and she loves that, and good for her. If that makes her
Absolutely.
happy, Ma, you have a good time.
Absolutely. And so, whatever religion it is, as long as it doesn't impact me,
Right.
uh,
What I object to is religion being used as a tool to hammer other people and the way they live their lives. Oh,
indeed. But if that is not the case, and if people feel the need for beliefs, and if they feel that they behave better and that they are supported and that they are helped and everything, I totally agree with that. Um,
I do too. Everyone, you do you, whatever it is.
yeah,
What made me an atheist was actually reading the Bible.
yeah, well, yeah, but
I mean, the contradictions, the different stories, the violence and murder and maiming and all of that in the Old Testament. It was just disgusting. Cut the unborn babies out of, mothers during war, rape their daughters, If you find a virgin, you may take her as your bride. I mean, horrible book. Then I read the Quran, and then I read the Talmud, and I read them all, and I thought, I want nothing to do with any religion whatsoever.
Yes, that is very true indeed. And I agree with that. But I also, yes.
This guy is very snuggly today. As I told you, it is really cold this morning, and I have a little like space heater on here, but it's not enough for him, so he's got to cuddle to stay warm.
Oh, he does look like he's trembling. My cat just jumped onto the bathroom counter, so that's what I was looking at. I was wondering
Okay,
if he was going to fall into the toilet, but no, he missed.
good.
Yeah, huh?
Yeah,
So you moved into a new flat yesterday. No, day
right,
before yesterday.
right.
And that was, do you still have marble floors?
I have tile floors, and they're cold too.
Oh,
So I
sorry.
have my electric socks on.
Yes. And is this flat better than the last one?
No, no, no. It's not better. I didn't move to a better flat. The other flat was ridiculously expensive, and it was gorgeous. No doubt about it. In some ways, you know, 2 bedrooms, huge. But I was paying the tourist tax or the white tax, and it was more than I could afford. In order to go to school full time to learn Spanish, I needed to find different housing, and the school found me this place. It's a room in someone else's house, so it's shared. But during the day, they're at work, and then I'll be gone in the evenings with Spanish school. We're not going to see a lot of each other, so it feels fine. And there are owls everywhere in this room. My mother has collected owls her entire life. She has maybe 500 different owls from different countries, stuffed, ceramic, carved wood, gold, jewelry. And when I moved in here, there are one, two, three owls on a shelf and two owl paintings on the wall. And I thought, okay, this works. This is fine. I will be comfortable. The only problem was getting used to the new bed. The first night, I slept wrong and pinched a nerve in my shoulder. And I had frozen shoulder all day yesterday. I did go to the doctor, and he gave me this super powerful anti-inflammatory pill, shot, and cream. I mean,
Wow.
I'm hit with a triple whammy, and it's painful but better today, a lot
I'm
better.
glad.
And
I'm glad to hear that.
I
Yeah.
slept last night, and I didn't sleep the night before at all. Really, there was so much pain.
Oh, I'm
Um,
so sorry to hear that.
and Milu didn't sleep much, which is why he's sleeping now. Because when I'm awake, he tends to be awake.
Yes, I would guess that's the case.
He will always fall asleep on my lap.
Oh, well, he's really adorable.
Yeah.
I can see him right behind my microphone.
He's actually not asleep right now. He's looking at me. He heard his
Yes,
name.
I know. They do that. They do that. So, yes, so we were talking about traditions, and of course, the Christmas tree originated in Germany, was brought
Yeah.
over by Prince Albert to the UK.
And the first lights were candles.
Yes, they were. And I have at least one occasion to talk about where I can remember, of course, as a child, lighting up those lovely candles on our Christmas tree. And there was at least one occasion where my father grabbed the Christmas tree and threw it out the window.
Okay.
Yes,
Was it
bubbles and
caught
all.
on fire?
Yes.
Okay.
So, yes. Uh,
I have a friend in San Francisco who was born in Germany. And every year, just on Christmas Eve, one night, and they're all sitting around it with a fire extinguisher, she does the candles rather than the electric
lights.
light. And it is so beautiful.
Oh, yeah. Oh yeah, the candles were absolutely beautiful. Unfortunately, uh, that particular tree that went flying out the window coincided with the year my parents bought a whole bunch of new beautiful glass decorations for the Christmas tree.
Oh no.
Yes,
Oh no.
yes.
See, I still have Christmas decorations. I don't usually get a tree, but I will bring the box up from the basement and put a few around. When I was a kid, my Aunt Phyllis made Christmas decorations, and they were so beautiful. And I adored Phyllis. She died when I was very young. So that's my way of remembering her.
Yes. Well, as the children were growing up, when we would go on holiday somewhere, like Venice or Austria or Germany, wherever we went, we bought a Christmas decoration that we would use on the tree that year, along with all the other decorations. Now, since my children have grown up and we live in a Mietskaserne, actually we don't, we live in a studio, but Adam likes to call it a Mietskaserne, which is a tenement
Uh,
flat. But we live in a studio and we are never home for Christmas. Um, and so I had brought all my Christmas decorations to my mother's house to decorate her Christmas tree because we would go to my mother's house for Christmas. Well, my mother has died. All my Christmas decorations have been mixed up with her Christmas decoration, and all of her Christmas decorations have gone to my little sister, Sonia. So now Sonia has all of my traditional Christmas decorations, and we do not have Christmas trees. And maybe one day we'll have an apartment or a house again, and then we can start having Christmas in our place.
what I like even more than the Christmas tree is the poinsettia. I think the poinsettia is one of the most beautiful traditions.
That's very true. And that's an American tradition. And your image has actually disappeared.
I
But that
had to
is
turn the camera off for a second because my butt went numb and I have to stand up, and I don't think people want to look at my belly.
true. True, true, true. Fair enough.
Um,
So yeah, poinsettias are beautiful. They were, I think they were started as an American tradition and now have moved all over the place, certainly in England. But yeah, I think they are beautiful.
there we go. They have moved to England. They've moved here. Here, they didn't expect it to be so cold. So there was an entire tree in a square near here that was a sort of a frame with soil, and they planted poinsettias. It was a beautiful poinsettia tree, but we had a freeze, and they're all kind of dead now.
Oops. Yes, yes. It's already been predicted, and I have to say, maybe a little bit early, but they predicted that 2025 will be the warmest year yet.
I hope so. But you know what? It hasn't been getting much warmer in much of the world. It has in a little few places, but much of the world has gotten colder and colder. So I hope we get warm. I would love to really have global warming, on a full scale, especially in Germany.
Um, what I would like, actually, in Germany, and especially in Berlin, of course, is to see snow again, real snow.
I hate snow so much.
You know, to have, like we used to have, a foot of snow, at least 2 feet of snow, the roads iced over, and everything. I mean, when we were there in 2011, it was -10 or something like this. Although to be fair, in Aix-en-Provence in 2011, it was -18. So much for that theory, because that, of course, is the south of France.
Oh, you just mentioned snow and I get cold. I don't think there's anything I hate more. And that comes from having lived in Minnesota,
Where you have snow.
where the snow comes down, feet at a time. And we were always taking snow days and being snowed in, and then having to, continue our into the summer to make up for the missing days. It was just the most horrible thing on earth. I remember once the snow was so high, I couldn't open the front door.
I lived in Canada for 2 years.
Mm.
It snowed. We used to go to school with rackets on our feet, snow rackets. So we'd have to walk to school. We walked to school. It was about a mile away or so. And yeah, we'd have to walk to school in snow rackets.
Well, here's a holiday that I find interesting that people celebrate outside of their home country. July 4th for the Americans and July 14th for the French.
Well, they don't really celebrate July 14th in Germany.
There are French people who do celebrate it in Germany, yeah.
Yeah, probably. Well, they're during the summer months. So July 4th is my brother-in-law's birthday. So I tend to celebrate that over July 4th, even if there's a couple of American flags in his birthday cake. But yeah, it's generally July 14th. I'm usually in France, so everything is shut.
Sure. I never celebrated July 4th, even when I was a little kid. And that was because of the Vietnam War. I had an objection to the US imperial empire taking away the freedom of others and getting involved in international incidents while saying we were the land of the free. And additionally, fireworks were the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air to me. And that didn't work. I didn't want to see bombs bursting in air. I am a peace activist in every single case. All war is wrong, always. There's a way to solve it without murdering people. And I just couldn't celebrate that holiday. So in Germany, people keep asking me, we're gonna do a July 4th picnic. We're gonna have hot dogs. No, I'd rather be burned as a witch than eat a hot dog. Thank you.
I love hot dogs. Oh my.
How?
I could not go to New York. I mean, the minute I get into New York, I go to the first vendor and have a hot dog. No ketchup, of course, but definitely onions and mustard, French mustard, what they call French mustard, which no
Right,
French
which
person
isn't
would.
French at all.
Yeah,
Right.
it's no French at all. Oh my, I love New York hot dogs. And if I'm in San Francisco, I have corn dogs.
Oh, the most vile things on earth. Oh,
Yeah, yep. Yeah, corn dogs and
can't
hot
do a hot
dogs.
dog. I remember, hating hot dogs even when I was a little kid. They just never ever appealed to me. I like sausage very much. German sausage, Polish sausage, Spanish sausage. Here we have a lot of merguez, which is made with lamb, and I adore it. I like the UK sausage with the sage and the bread ground into it. I love sausage, but hot dogs never have done it for me.
One thing I hate is currywurst.
I would agree. If the sausage is good, you don't glop it up with ketchup. If the
Indeed.
sausage isn't good, the ketchup isn't going to help. And I feel the
Indeed.
same way about sangria. If the wine is good, don't put sugar and fruit in it. If the wine is not good, sugar and fruit will not help.
Oh no, I love sangria. It's party time. You don't make sangria by yourself. You make it to share with friends and to have a party. I mean, it's like a punch bowl.
It is like a punch bowl, and I don't like punch either. So
Yeah.
I actually took sangria off the tour because there were a lot of complaints that it's a wine tour and we shouldn't be drinking this sugared up wine. We want a better experience. So I killed the sangria and substituted a pinch of peras, which is a very interesting red wine. And people loved it until we got to two guests who wrote the nastiest reviews ever because we didn't include sangria.
Wow. Yeah. Never mind.
Yeah, well, they were Americans, you know. There,
Yes.
there are a breed of Americans that can never be made happy no matter what. And
Yes.
they want to tell you how to do everything. And I'm sure every country has these, but in New York, we used to call them mavens. This should be this way. 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 And if it's not that way, they're not going to be happy. Um, and so, it took a couple days before I responded to the reviews, the two reviews from a married couple. And I said, you know what? First of all, they revealed that their daughter was regional manager for Devour Food Tours. And so they had an affiliation with another food tour company. And I just put that in my answer to them. We know who you are. Thank you for showing us who you are. And this is what you wrote to us in the email, that the wine selections were excellent and plentiful. And then you complained about not getting cheap sangria. So I'm just going to let your review stand so people know who you are. And that's kind of how I answered it, because come on, people.
No, I totally agree with you. But maybe you should have kind of like two tours. One tour that includes sangria for Americans, and one tour that doesn't include sangria for everybody else.
Actually, most Americans don't want it. They were the ones complaining about the sangria.
Well, I think probably their review had to do with their daughter more
I'm
than the
sure
sangria.
their review had to do with their daughter. She's a regional manager for another food tour company. So they wanted to be bitchy. And each of them wrote a review that are almost identical. They had two different TripAdvisor profiles.
Yeah.
So they always say that the best way to do it is to say, we thank you for your feedback. We're always looking to be better. But I did not thank them for their feedback, and I didn't respond the way we're supposed to.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. You should respond. I mean, if it's rubbish review, then point it out as being rubbish review.
I remember this coffee shop having a sign out front that said, our coffee is 1 star, said one woman in Yelp. And so I had to go in and try the coffee, which was actually great. Opinions are like, what did they say? Opinions are like word I won't say on the radio. Everyone has one.
Yes, indeed. Absolutely. And a lot of times they are interchangeable.
They're often interchangeable, and they often come from a place of what I want versus what you offer.
Indeed. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I agree with you. For me to write a bad review, it really has to be bad. I'll
I've done
write a
it
good.
once for a hotel.
Yeah, I mean, at the time I didn't write a review, but years and years and years ago, as a matter of fact, to be precise, it was 1993. We went to a hotel in Argentina, and it was a 5-star hotel, and it was fascinating. There was blood on the sheets, there was dirt on the wall. I didn't write a review, but because there were practically no computers back then. But if
Right.
something like that happens again, especially with a 5-star hotel,
Well, this
I
wasn't
will.
5 star. It was 3 star in Sydney, Australia. It was my last 2 nights, and I had to change hotels because where I was staying was full. It was incredible and cheap. So I moved to a slightly more expensive hotel, but it said one of the features was a shared kitchen, and I thought that'll be nice. So I get to the hotel, and there are open garbage everywhere in the kitchen, and rats eating the garbage right in front of me.
Oh, nice.
So I took a picture, and I did write about that on TripAdvisor because, rats. And I went downstairs to check out and say, no, money back, I'm leaving. And they tried to argue with me. And I said, you know what? Money back. or not only am I leaving, but I'm going to stand outside your hotel and I'm going to put this picture, share it with everyone of the rat at the car. Oh, they usually don't come out during the day. I mean, it's
Oh,
nice.
goody.
And I thought, come on, they don't come out during the day. That's your rationale. So he then did give me my money back. And I went maybe 2 blocks away, just found a place on the street and said, may I see a room? And I went to see the room and it was perfectly fine. I lost my kitchen, but I had a hot kettle to make coffee or tea. So I was okay with that. I really, really will not stay that. And one other time, this was again before computers, I went into a room and the roaches were crawling literally everywhere.
Nice.
So I went back downstairs and said no. And they came up and looked and said, oh, okay, this was in San Francisco. Yeah, we'll give you your money back. We sprayed the floor above you, so they all came down here.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Well,
Spray on the floors.
the roaches have to live, and if you're going to spray a floor, they'll go to another floor.
Yeah, that's why you spray every floor, not one floor.
Yes,
roaches are a big problem in Spain.
We had roaches in California in our house that we were renting, my sister and I, my big sister and I. And we also had 2 dogs, and the roaches would come out at night. And if we had to go to the kitchen, the dogs would stand at the door and and they would like ready. And we'd turn the lights on and they would run in there and catch as many roaches as they could before they scattered away. It was kind of
I learned a trick for getting rid of roaches forever and ever. And it's not available in all parts of the world, but in the United States, there's an eye wash called salicylic acid. Have you ever used it?
No.
So if you have pink eye, it's a recommended eye wash. You put it in a cup, you mix it with water, you hold it over your eye, and it helps kill the bacteria. Salicylic acid to roaches is the active ingredient in 99% of roach sprays, but they use 1 or 2% so that you keep buying the spray or you keep calling the exterminator. But if you use the pure salicylic acid and just put this powder behind your stove, cupboards, whatever, the roaches all die. And any more that come into the house will die too. It just dries them up. It turns them into roach skeletons. So that's what the active ingredient is doing. But the exterminators never want you to use only that because then they're out of business.
That was the last time, and that would have been 1984 to 1986 was the last time I had cockroaches in my house. So a while back. Yeah,
I haven't had roaches for years. We had them in New York. I did the salicylic acid trick. They were gone. I never saw another one. Same in San Francisco. All big cities have them somewhere. They're living in walls. They're living somewhere in a city. Same with rats.
And weevils, those little things that like flour, and so the worm comes out of the egg and it climbs all the way to the ceiling, the top of the ceiling, and then it cocoons and then it comes out as a flying moth. And it loves flour. So
flour, rice, anything like that. So I keep it all in glass jars.
Exactly. I've put everything in closable things because I hate those things.
I hate them too. And I did have a little problem with them when I first moved to Germany, and I put everything in jars and they had no more food sources and they are now gone.
Well, I did that in Germany, and I don't know where they're finding their food source because occasionally I see one flying across the room. And in my cupboard, I have anti-moth things, and in my kitchen, everything is in jars or closable things. And occasionally I still see them flying around, and it annoys me.
Well, it takes microscopic amounts to keep them fed. So,
Yeah,
if there's a crumb on the counter overnight, that's good for them.
indeed, indeed. So, yeah, although I think we have slightly moved from traditions.
We do this for
We do
regular
this all the
listeners.
time.
We start on a topic and then we go into the world and find other topics. We were on July 4th, but hamburgers and hot dogs, how much can you say? How about Memorial Day and Labor Day? You still bother with those traditions at all?
I don't think we have them in Europe.
No, no, but you lived in the US for a long time.
Oh, no, no. But funnily enough, my brother and I were discussing Columbus Day the other day,
Right.
which is not celebrated anymore.
No, no, not really. It is in some places, but in general, no. Well, Columbus did not discover what we call the United States of America. He went to the West Indies. Amerigo Vespucci was probably the first person to have seen it, but we know they keep digging up evidence to go, oh, the Vikings were here. Oh, these people were here. Oh, these people were here. Oh, the ancient Incas were here. So nothing is ever really discovered. Things are rediscovered. It's like recipes. Very few
And
recipes are invented. They're adapted. They're changed. They evolve.
they also found out that there's a chance that Christopher Columbus may have been Jewish.
There's a chance he may have been Portuguese. There's a chance he may have been Jewish. These theories come up every once in a while. I don't worry about any of them
No,
because the
no,
fact is we don't know, and it doesn't really matter.
no. But I'm saying when they discovered that he was Italian Jew, um, all of a sudden we seem to have stopped celebrating Columbus Day.
I don't think that had anything to do with it. I think it was because he was a slave owner, kind of a jerk. I mean, these conversations were happening long before anybody thought he might be Jewish. And after he might be Jewish, it came out he might be Portuguese, not Jewish, not Italian. So who cares? He was not a great guy, but he did sail a long journey. We'll give him that. He stayed on a boat for a long time and didn't get scurvy.
Very true. Very true. And he did try to find a road to India going west, and okay, didn't make it, but at least did not think the earth was flat.
No, he knew the earth was not flat. Speaking of Jewish, you reminded me of my favorite Christmas tradition. When I was in New York, I wasn't a big Christmas celebrator, and I had a lot of Jewish friends. I always, it's New York. You can't avoid them. And so we would do Chinese food and a movie every Christmas Day. Dim sum, a roast duck, or something like this, and then go to whatever movie it was. The movie didn't so much matter as being together, hanging out, and going to a Chinese restaurant. And that was my favorite Christmas tradition because it had nothing to do with the Christmases of my childhood. It was entirely New York, to have a bagel with a schmear and some lox in the morning, then Chinese food and movie, go home, still early in the night. I love that. I absolutely love that.
Was that Christmas Day or Christmas Eve?
That was Christmas Day.
Ah,
Everything was closed except Chinese restaurants and hotels for the most part.
oh, fair enough.
Or the Jewish places like H&H Bagel, where I always went for my bagel on 80th and Broadway. And so I used to have a Jewish Christmas. And I love that. I love that because all kinds of faiths and non-faiths would gather together because it was just a big group of people saying, all right, let's do this. Let's go out for dim sum. Let's do this. And, everyone gathered together. And, you began a foundation against prejudice of all types. And
Yes.
this was, I think, the ultimate representation of that, because I remember one Christmas we had Jewish people. We had Raj, who was a Hindu. We had two Muslim friends of mine. We had me, an atheist. We had a couple of Christians that didn't have anything else to do. And we all got together for dim sum at Wong's down in Chinatown, and then walked uptown and went to a movie. And it was the best thing ever. Faith should never divide anyone.
No, of course not. You know, I have nothing, like we said from the beginning, I have absolutely nothing against faith as long as you don't try and impose some of its rules on me. You know,
That is how I feel. You believe abortion is a sin? Okay, don't have one. You believe being part of gay marriage is a sin? Don't marry a gay person. I mean, it's really simple to live your life without worrying about how other people live their lives.
indeed, if you don't believe in these things, it's of course totally you're right, but you cannot impose them on anyone else. If you don't believe in abortions, don't have one, but don't tell other people not to have one. If you don't believe in gay marriages, don't have one, but don't tell other people not to have one.
It's like
Yeah.
I have always, only maybe two exceptions, hated drag queens. Hated them. I think they're like men in woman phase. They're worse than Amos and Andy. They parody femininity, but I allow them to be. I just don't go to their shows.
Saying that, of course, Dame Edna is one of my favorite people on the
That
planet.
was one of my two exceptions.
Indeed. How could you not? You know, she was so clever, so witty.
But she was not really parodying the female experience. She was parodying the human experience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Although, to be
And that's
fair,
why I love her. She never made fun of women. She made fun of everyone.
and I loved Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, the film.
I saw it so many years ago, I don't even remember it.
Yeah. But of course, it was not just about drag queens, but it was about how they should have the right, or rather, they have the right to be whoever they are.
I would agree. I don't have
Yeah.
to watch your show, but you have the right to be whatever you want to be. What my favorite Dame Edna routine was when she was talking about, handicapped parking and handicapped restroom stalls, because this is something I experienced when I was in New Orleans. I wanted to renovate the restrooms, and according to federal law, I had to make them handicapped accessible. But I was in a historic property, so I was forbidden from adding a ramp for handicapped people to get into the building. It made no sense to have a handicapped restroom when no one can get into the building. What are we going to do? Pick them up and carry them in? So I had to go to the city council to fight against both of those things. I wanted a handicapped ramp, which I wasn't allowed to have, and I was fine with making it a handicapped restroom if I could give people access. And finally, the city council allowed me to put a ramp from the kitchen exit at the side of the building into the kitchen, but it had to be retractable, so it could not be seen from the street. So it was not a low-cost thing, but at least it finally made sense. And Dame Edna was talking about the restrooms on Bear Mountain, which is a mountain in New York you have to hike, and it's a long, long, long hike. And all the restrooms were handicapped accessible. Apparently, he visited it and said, "What are they going to do? Bring the crippies in a helicopter and put them to pee?" It made no sense to have handicapped restrooms in a place that is completely and totally handicapped inaccessible.
Yes, of course. And again, having something, I mean, unless it's Mother Nature, I'm not terribly surprised that the face in Yosemite is not handicap friendly, but of course we should try and make everything as available to everyone as possible. It's lovely because your image has frozen and you looked like you were totally asleep to everything I was saying.
No, I wasn't asleep at all. I couldn't hear you because when my image froze, I lost your sound.
No, I was just saying that everything should be as handicap accessible as it can possibly be. Again, my fight against discrimination.
Right. And San Francisco is, I believe, other than the hills, which were a challenge, even in an electric wheelchair, the most handicapped accessible place I can recall seeing, because every single curb has that indent so that the chair can get up and down it. And they have a lot of handicap parking spaces, much more than any other city. San Francisco doesn't do everything right, but they do some things very right.
Well, that's good. And of course, my memories of San Francisco are the 80s, but back in the 80s, certainly loved San Francisco.
It was Party City then, although they've done something recently that is on the news in Spain, and I hear other parts of Europe every single day for the past 2 weeks, because the holidays are slow news period usually. And so San Francisco hired an obesity czar. The health department hired this very, very obese woman to normalize obesity. And she's part of the health department in San Francisco. So she has made a series of videos. One of them, I think, is hysterically funny, unintentionally on her part, talking about if you ask for a small piece of cake, you're being oppressive. It's a form of oppression against large people.
Now, by definition, being on the rather large side, I, of course, cannot tolerate fat shaming in any way, shape, or form. Nevertheless, it is quite obvious that if you weigh an excessive amount, unless you look like Schwarzenegger, it's going to be fat.
He's about 250 kilograms.
Exactly, of muscle. But
No, she doesn't have muscle.
oh, she was about 200.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
that you know, and health wise, being what we call morbidly obese,
Which she is.
yeah, is by definition not terribly healthy.
And it's not even her size or that they're making fun of. They're making fun of her videos where she calls other people eating normally or eating less a form of oppression against her. You know, if you go out for pizza with me and you eat 2 slices and I eat the rest of the pizza, you're oppressing me. You're making me feel bad. You know, you are supposed to eat an equal amount to what I eat. We need to share the pizza or we're not truly friends. That kind of video is what the Spanish
Okay,
find terribly funny.
there is no way I can eat the whole pizza. Sorry about that.
Neither can I. She can, apparently. And
Yeah.
it's and you love pizza and I love pizza.
Yeah.
But she's, you know, she's a piece of work. You should see some of her videos on YouTube.
I will look for them.
There's, you know, and you are, you know, a fraction of her size. You're not really a large woman by American standards.
Yeah, but I'm definitely a large woman by French standards.
Right. But French standards are this,
Yes,
you know,
they
and
are.
forget them. That's not realistic. It's And menopause changes women's bodies. We all have to accept the changes that nature brings, no matter what they are, which is why discrimination is wrong. At the same time, you don't promote or tell people that they're being wrong or bad for eating less than you do.
No, I mean, it's like, again, it's like promoting smoking or any other unhealthy habit.
Well, that's what one of the Spanish editorials was about. It was, what are they next? They're going to hire a smoking czar to teach people how to smoke. Are they going to do this? Are they going to do that? It's considered incredibly comical. And I do admit to finding her videos on YouTube and laughing so much because of the philosophical and intellectual machinations she makes to make everyone else's eating habits be oppressive to her.
Huh. Now, I will go back on something else that you said at the beginning of this particular conversation. You mentioned that the holiday times was usually slow news time.
Yes,
Unfortunately, that has not been the case.
I know.
And therefore, I would like us to have a little thought or a big thought to all these people who were affected by both the Magdeburg
Hmm.
and the New Orleans um, incident and incident.
They haven't released the names of New Orleans, and I have a friend down there,
I
and
know.
you probably saw that. I reached out to him on Facebook. I've texted him. I've sent him an email, and no response. Um, and I suspect he either went somewhere for the holidays and is not paying attention to any of his connections, which is my hope, or he was among the injured. They haven't released the names, and that's very strange to me.
Yes, and of course my thoughts are with the people in Magdeburg. But when I saw New Orleans, I immediately thought of you, and you know, it's just more and more people are using their cars, their trucks, and stuff like that
Yep,
as
Germany
a
and New
weapon.
Orleans, and it's it's a horrible thing. In New Orleans, it was first the car, and then he got out and gunned people down. Um, you know, I I don't know what causes people to behave that way. It's so ugly and so violent. It just don't do that.
I know,
Don't do
I
that.
know,
I don't understand it. I contacted everyone I know in New Orleans, every single person, and only one has not responded. So my hope is he's on vacation.
I know, I know. I get so angry when I see something like that happening. Um, I don't condone suicide, but if you want to kill yourself, at least don't take half the population with you.
I don't condone suicide, but I understand it sometimes. Some people, it's a tough period and they're being irrational. But a very old friend of mine was 102, and he had was doing great, living on his own, blah 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 blah, and then he was badly injured, and he knew it was the end, and he chose to take a little pill at home, that he had reserved about 20 years before, and he kept renewing because they expire, and end it one night, and that was his choice. He told me he was going to do it, and that is different than a suicide. It's like when one of my relatives
Indeed.
had a massive stroke, and they were telling her husband that she was going to be probably in a persistent vegetative state, and that he should move her to a care facility and out of the hospital. Well, she wasn't completely gone, because she heard that on some level of her consciousness, and one hand reached up and pulled everything out of her body in one very strong stroke, and the oxygen, everything, and she was gone in a second. And she still had enough consciousness to know to do that she didn't want to live that way. And I feel the same way. Persistent vegetative state, no.
Yeah, not for me either. No.
Justin Trudeau's, you know, uh, supposedly aid program to allow homeless people to commit suicide, I think is sick and immoral. People.
Really? He did that?
Oh, it's been going on for years now.
Oh,
Yeah.
great. That's one way to help them.
If you're
Not.
homeless or if you're addicted to drugs, we have a way out. This is what we can do for you. And it's not really helping them.
Nope.
it's helping society look away from people who have nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. 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 Yep.
Now, that's been going on since after the first year of his term. He's been roundly criticized for it. He's on Twitter, they call him Blackface Hitler, because so many people in Canada have been a part of this eugenics program. And a few people have come forward and made videos saying they tried to convince me to do this. I didn't want to do this,
No.
but I have
No.
doctors
No.
being compassionate and trying to, force my hand.
Oh, how awful.
Yeah. So I think it's one of those things where you should have to ask for it. Get rid of the death capsules that they're being used in all these countries. And just, if I ask you, my doctor, for morphine, or if I have an end of life provision in my will, then you give me the morphine needed to do the job. And I believe Eartha Kitt, she was on morphine. She had serious colon cancer. And on Christmas Day, she was surrounded by her family and friends. And she just pressed the button when the pain is too bad. And she died on Christmas Day. And I think for her, that was the perfect exit. It was graceful. It was time. Her body was not going to recover. She had gone through the colon cancer twice before, and it kept returning no matter what she did. And so she said, enough. That's okay.
Yeah, of course. Of course. The one thing that I do not tolerate, again, tolerate is a big word with me, but is pain. Okay. If you're in pain, we have to stop the pain. And being in pain for the last, whatever, 10 years of your life is just not going to cut it. My grandmother had gangrene. They said if they keep her in her leg, they said if they keep her leg the way it is, she will die. If they removed her whole leg, she would die. So they only cut up to the knee, which didn't make the gangrene go away, but made her live for another year under massive doses of morphine in a hospital that was incredibly expensive.
Yeah, no, that's no way to treat people.
Exactly. And because I was young, I was a very young adult, and everybody else was older and wiser. That's how she lived for, under high doses. She had bed sores where I could see her spine through the bed sores that they stuffed with gauze every day and stuff like that. And no.
Mm. Oh, that's cruel. That is cruel.
Exactly. That
And
is
it's
cruel.
hard to know the line between compassionate and cruel unless the person themselves has written an end of life. My mother has a do not resuscitate order at this point in her life. That's okay. She's at an age where she's now blind. She can walk, but life has lost some of its joy. My brother has to read her my emails. She is partially deaf and has a difficult time talking on the phone. So a lot of the joy is gone. Her life has become very small. She lives on her own in an apartment, but she can't cook any longer. And she goes downstairs for her meals. And she's okay with that. But if something happens, be it a stroke or a heart attack or whatever, then she's done.
Yeah. No, they made my grandmother live for at least a year in mind-numbing pain. Well, mind-numbing, no, it wasn't mind-numbing because it was morphine-numbed pain. Because she was first at home with nurses around the clock, and then she went to hospital. But basically, they spent a fortune making her live for as long as possible in unbelievable pain because she was a cash cow.
Yeah, I was in unbelievable pain yesterday with the shoulder. It still hurts, but it's not unbelievable pain. And I was given one tablet of low dose morphine, just one, to sleep last night. And I was grateful for it because when I woke up this morning, it's like, all right, that's reduced by 60%. I can live with this. But before I took that one pill at 10:30 last night, I felt like my whole shoulder was on fire. I couldn't use my left arm. It was dreadful. So I'm with you on pain. No one should be forced to live in pain. Mine was temporary, and we knew that.
Yeah, mine isn't. I've always been a firm advocate of no pain. And in the last year, in the whole of 2024, I have lived with it because, as you know, I have impingement syndrome in this shoulder, and I have a trapped nerve in this shoulder. And impingement syndrome means that my whole right arm hurts. And of course, I had my uh, femoral neck was broken. So the regenerating muscle in my leg has been hurting since then. So yes, so I'm on ibuprofen twice a day,
Is it
and
helping?
it is helping. There is a difference between before and after,
Okay.
but
Ibuprofen has never done anything for me.
I can't take paracetamol because my liver
That
is
process.
messed up. Yes.
I don't take paracetamol either. It also doesn't work for me. What I discovered when my foot was crushed by a car and I had to spend 2 years on crutches and the multiple foot surgeries was that painkillers, they gave me oxy at one point, do not lessen pain in me, whether it's the low level or the high level. They only make me not care that I have pain. And then I become incautious. So I remember taking
That's
oxy, which has dreadful side effects, and the pain was real, but I didn't care anymore. It didn't matter to me that I was in pain.
that's terrible.
So I'm a little scared of painkillers. I do have to say that the morphine last night um, took about 45 minutes to process in my body, and it felt like I could almost feel like a heating pad moving down my arm as the pain lessened, and then I drifted off.
Yeah, I'm allergic to oxycodone, so I can't have it.
That was the worst thing I've ever tried in my life, and I'm glad it was so horrible that I never took it a second time.
But yeah, and I can't take, I mean, they say that your body falls apart in stages. Well, in the last year, it certainly has fallen apart, my body at least.
Well, you broke
And
your leg.
yeah, I broke my leg, but I have an autoimmune disease in my liver, which is primary biliary cholestasis. Okay, my eye was fixed, but I have both my arms, um, and so on and so forth. So, well, but whatever doesn't stop me from living.
No, and it shouldn't because you're not at the point that your grandmother was.
Oh, no, not at all. Oh,
Yeah.
no, not at all. Not even
Um,
close.
my mother, fortunately, doesn't have pain. That's one wonderful thing. Even as things sort of deteriorate, she's she still makes jokes about it. She goes, they always told me that you didn't decompose until after you were diabetic. It's been happening for the past 2 years.
Yes, and that was one thing. My mother's mind was going, but every time I saw her, I said, "You don't have pain, do you? You're not in any pain." And the three of us made it very clear to the care home that pain was not going to be something we tolerated for my mother.
We are coming to the last 2 minutes of our show. So I think we should give the email address for anyone who wants to send us a note.
Absolutely. Now, I am going to, again, not only post it so that everybody knows, I mean, show it so that everybody knows, but talk about it. So I am going to our page on Facebook, and then I will show everyone our page. You can't miss our page on Facebook because there's a lovely photo of Carl eating something on the top.
In
And
Thailand, yeah.
yes, the page is called free range. Oh, free range expat radio.
We can't see that at all on your phone. Maybe next week we can do a screen share.
Oh, indeed. And can we still? No, we can't. My entire phone is white.
No, there's a glare from the telephone, so it just looks like a
Yeah.
white screen.
So I'll say it again. We are on YouTube at Free Range Radio Berlin. Our email is freerangeexpat, so 2 E's, at gmail.com. And our page itself is free range colon expat radio. Yeah. On Facebook. So by all means,
And I know we have listeners on
do
YouTube.
contact us.
So the count keeps going up. And I learned something about YouTube. The count doesn't go up unless they play the whole video.
Oh, I didn't
So
know that.
Yeah, the big numbers for the first episode show a lot of people listened.
Yes, that they do. So, my friends, we will see you next week.
All right. Goodbye, everyone. We are going off the air in just 1 second.
Bye.